Hi guys, Devil Hunter XYZ, and in this installment of The Good and the Bad, I decided to continue with the whole Devil May Cry trend, and the next one is Devil May Cry 4, or I guess in my case, Devil May Cry 4, the Collector's Edition. And, well, Devil May Cry 4 is supposed to take place between 1 and 2, kind of, I guess in a way filling the gap, but it really doesn't, it's almost like a standalone Devil May Cry, it doesn't have any relevance to either of them. But what's different with the collector's edition is it comes with a bonus DVD having an art gallery, soundtrack, a making of video, as well as some PC exclusives, mostly like desktops and stuff like that. And it also has the first volume of the Devil May Cry anime, which is not really a bad anime, I mean, in my opinion. But also, they actually re-released Devil May Cry 4 back in mid-2015, like a special edition. And there they included 3 new characters where you can play the entire game as Virgil, and then you kind of have a switch off between Lady and Trish. So kind of adding more or less more content into the game itself. But I guess I could take a look at both of them and see how it is. So yeah, let's take a closer look. Well, for the good of Devil May Cry 4, I guess one thing I can say right off the bat that I do like is the difficulty modes. And I mean, it's weird because I don't really talk much about difficulty modes, but this one has a good variety. Well, I mean, they do have the technical easy, normal, hard. Of course, they don't really call them that here. Human mode is basically easy. Devil Hunter is normal. Son of Sparta is hard. Of course, they have Dante Must Die mode, and then of course they have Heaven or Hell, you know, where everyone dies in one hit, and then they have Hell and Hell where the player still dies in one hit, but the enemies have like normal health. And of course, on the PC and on the special edition, there's also the exclusive Legendary Dark Knight mode, which it plays roughly the same as Son of Sparta, but it's just now the enemies have been tremendously multiplied. So like in places where you're fighting like I don't know 3 to 5 enemies, whatever, you could be fighting like maybe 20 to 30 enemies in an area. So I mean, it gets pretty dramatic. It gets pretty difficult at times, and it's a good. I guess a good fun action right there if you want to actually challenge yourself. The second good I would say is the enemies. Typically in previous Devil May Cry games, I always found the enemies being a little bit on the easy side, I guess, you know, because there tends to be like some easy alternative to really defeat enemies, or like in general the enemies kind of more or less are brain dead, where they don't really do much to attack you at all, and mostly can be easily dodged or destroyed. But in the fourth game, it seems like most of the enemies require some bit of strategy to defeat them, which I do like that. I mean, I'd rather have a more challenging enemy than having just enemies that are just more or less roadblocks in the way. And of course, the third thing I do like is the actual added mechanics for each character that was in the game. I mean, like you have Nero's Devil Bringer, where mostly you're going to be using the Snatch ability, where it allows you to like reach out and grab enemies and pull them in, so like bring in the battle to you. And of course, finishing them off using the Buster attack, like the special melee attack. Then you have Dante and his ability to switch his styles on the spot, which I mean, a lot better than the third game where you're stuck with just one style for the entire mission, unless you find the God of Time statue. But here you can actually switch between your 4 styles, and technically Dante does get a 5th style, near the end. And of course, adding it with the special edition, if you're playing as Virgil, you have the concentration gauge, where if you are playing like Virgil, if you're like waiting patiently, kind of performing attacks that hit the target, you can essentially increase your own attack power, creating more damage. And then of course you got Lady and Trish. For Lady, she has like a gun charging meter, where it allows you to charge up your long range weapons for more powerful attacks. And then you also have Trish, who has like a round trip timer, like a round trip timer gauge, where it kind of shows you how much time you have during the round trips when you're ever using Sparta. Yeah, so like a lot of unique abilities right off the bat with each of these characters. Well, for the bad, I mean, unfortunately, it was a little bit easier coming up with things that I really don't like about this game. But one thing I, one bad thing I could say is probably the music. I mean, I know Devil May Cry is more meant for rock music. I mean, it's kind of been like a staple since, I guess, technically the first game in a way. But here, it just kind of blends in to the point where it's just kind of gets like too much. But I think that's mainly because they really only have two battle themes for the entire game. I mean, they had like one for Nero, and it had one for Nero, which is the time has come, and then you have Dante, which he has a remixed version of Lock and Loaded. And I mean, they're great to hear every once in a while, but it would have been nice if they could have come up with multiple soundtracks for each character. You know, that way, give me some variety. That's what I'm saying. The second thing I don't like about this game, second bad, probably the bosses. Not really the bosses themselves per se, but it's just the fact that you're. It seems like almost every mission you're fighting a boss, which kind of gets a little bit tiring, really. And like out of the 20 missions or so, I think you're going to be fighting. I don't know, fighting bosses like almost all except for 4 missions out of the entire game, which I mean it's just kind of overwhelming, I know previous Devil May Cry games where you have to fight a boss every now and then, but this is probably the only Devil May Cry game where you're almost fighting a boss in every mission. And I kind of wish there were just times where the mission could just end, on the spot, without having to go into a last minute boss battle just for the sake of it. And the third bad thing I would say, I say it's the level design. It obviously has to be the level design. Whether you have the original version or the special edition, the level design is probably going to be the most complained thing about. To me, it kind of feels like it's incomplete. I mean, I guess that's how everyone felt about this game. It felt like the level design was just incomplete. Essentially, you're going from point A to point B as Nero, and then you go from point B back to point A as Dante, and then the last couple of missions you switch back to Nero. And I mean, the problem is that you're literally taking the same path to and from the place, from the same places, the exact same path. Nothing's really changed. So it kind of feels like Capcom just took a really cheap route and just, create half of the levels and then just decided to make the player backtrack all the way. So kind of felt a little bit lame right there. I mean, I've heard originally they were planning on making original levels for Dante, like different paths, and I wish they would have actually kept on that promise. But yeah, it's still not really that great. And even with the special edition with the added characters, it still doesn't really make it any. This doesn't make it any better. It's still the same path no matter what character you're really playing as. Well, for improvements, you know, personally, I would say one improvement that they could actually do that could possibly fix everything at the spot would probably be if they were to break up the game into like multiple games, and with different characters. Kind of like how Devil May Cry 2 somewhat did, we're having like a separate game for Dante and a separate game for Lucia. Maybe I wish they could have done something like that, like a separate game for each character, for Dante, Nero, Virgil, Lady, and Trish. I wish they could have done something like that, because that way, it wouldn't feel too cheaped out, like having less time to play as each character you want. You have equal amounts of time with the characters, and then also possibly having more soundtracks included, more battle themes, and at the same time maybe having different level designs. Maybe they could cross over every now and then, but maybe have like individual level designs for per game. I know that realistically wouldn't happen, because that would just be way too much to work on. I mean, that's almost like having 5 separate games put into one. But I don't know, maybe they could have done something similar to that. And it doesn't have to be a full 20 mission games for each character, but maybe like 10 or something, like 8 to 10. It's something that would help it out, help out in the long run. Well, overall, Devil May Cry 4 is a fairly decent Devil May Cry game. I mean, it's not complete trash, but at the same time, it's not the greatest game ever. Uh, with the special edition, I mean, I do like the fact they added all this new content into it. You know, the multiple characters, the additional costumes, difficulty modes, and some of the in-game gallery stuff, and of course, even turbo mode. They even brought that back. And I mean, I do appreciate all the stuff they add into it, but it doesn't change the fact that there is still flaws with the game. So no matter which version, the original or the special edition, you will see the same flaws, which unfortunately is that they couldn't really fix. But it's also kind of puzzling that even with all this new content they added with the special edition, it kind of makes me wonder that Capcom focused on some aspects, but then completely ignored other aspects of the game. So it just kind of makes it odd with that. And I guess with everything it said, I would probably give Devil May Cry 4 both the original and the special edition. Well, actually, no, I'll give the original a 7 out of 10. I'll give the special edition a 7.5. Yeah, a little bit higher only because I like the new characters added into it. You know, kind of it doesn't really make the experience any more better, but you know, at least kind of gives me more variety anyway. And I would say if you're really if you really want to play Devil May Cry 4, I would say get your hands on the special edition. I think I don't really know how much it is now. Man, when I got it, the special edition, it was about $40. I think it was. I think it was like $35 when I got it, and you know, I mean, it has a lot of good content. It's basically the same as the original from like the PS3 version, but with just additional content added to it. So I'd say go with that. You know, if you want to actually try out Devil May Cry 4. All right, well, this is Delph Hunter XYZ, and until next time.